Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm going to be talking about the college football playoff semifinals and how Ohio State has proven that they are a legit team. Alabama and Ohio State will be playing in the national championship game after beating Notre Dame and Clemson. But before I get into it, if you could subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me, as this is my dream job and less than 10% of the people that watch these videos are actually subscribed. These videos also take 6 to 10 hours to make, and I've already spent 3 to 4 hours on the script. I also may not have been able to analyze the game to you guys' liking because while I was watching the games, I was editing my Nikola Jokic video, but I was still watching the games. But I'm sorry if I wasn't able to analyze it great. Now to the video. In the first CFP semifinal of the day, the Alabama Crimson Tide faced off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the Rose Bowl, which is actually a rematch of the 2012-2013 BCS championship game. In that BCS championship game, Alabama beat Notre Dame 42-14. In this Rose Bowl, it was more of the same, with Bama defeating Notre Dame 31-14, but the score doesn't tell the whole story of the game. Alabama raced out to a 14-0 lead after the first quarter and 21-7 lead after the first half. In the second half, Bama just tried to keep the lead and finish the game instead of running out the score. This game was not as close as 17 points, though. In Alabama's first possession of the game, after a quick stop of Brian Kelly's offense, Mac Jones picked apart Notre Dame coverages for chunks of yards to get to about their 35. Then Najee got a 10-yard run, and Mac threw Devontae a 26-yard touchdown. After another Notre Dame drive stalled out, they pinned Alabama at their own 3, but that didn't matter. Najee got a nice run, Mac a couple of good passes to get Bama about 30 yards of breathing room. Then we saw one of the best runs this season in college football, where Najee broke away and then hurdled a defender en route to a 53-yard run. Then Mac connected with Billingsley to put Bama up 14-0. Running back Kyron Williams led Notre Dame downfield with some help of Ian Book and an 8-minute drive where Notre Dame scored its first points of the game in the shape of a Kyron Williams touchdown. Devontae Smith then had a few good catches and scored a touchdown in the last scoring drive of the first half. After a punt for Bama, interception from Notre Dame, Devontae Smith caught his third touchdown to put the Crimson Tide up 28-7. After Bama held off a Notre Dame comeback attempt, the Fighting Irish were eliminated as Alabama advances to a national championship game for the 5th time in CFP history and the first time since 2019. Notre Dame loses in the semifinals for a second time in CFP history. Alabama was led by their 3 stars, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, and Najee Harris. Mac had 297 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns with an insane 210.5 passer rating. Receiver Devontae Smith had 7 receptions and 130 receiving yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. Other receiver John Mechie had 3 receptions for 53 yards, and Jaleel Billingsley had 4 receptions with 39 yards and a TD. Najee Harris also had an insane 125 rushing yards on 8.3 average yards per carry this game. Najee also had 4 catches for 30 yards. This Alabama defense was led by Christian Harris, who got a pick, and DeMarco Helms, who had 9 tackles and a sack. Notre Dame quarterback Ian Book had a bad game with 229 passing yards and 55 rushing yards, but no touchdowns passing or rushing. Kyron Williams had an okay game with 64 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, even though he got most of it in that one drive. Micah Meyer and Ben Skowronek led the Notre Dame receiving corps with 11 catches and 103 yards combined. The Notre Dame defense didn't force a single turnover from Alabama, though. The second game of the semifinals was the Sugar Bowl. The 2-seed 10-1 Clemson Tigers faced off against 6-0 number 3 seed Ohio State. Before the game, Dabo Swinney took shots at Ohio State by ranking them at number 11 in the coaches poll for not playing as many games as the other teams, only playing 6. Ohio State and Clemson have sort of a rivalry, which Clemson has won the last 2 games that Ohio State has been in the college football playoffs. The last game that Ohio State played Clemson was last season in a CFP semifinal, which was the Fiesta Bowl. Clemson barely held off Ohio State in last year's Fiesta Bowl, and lost from a bad read from Justin Fields. This season, Ryan Day's squad got revenge by upsetting number 2 seed Clemson. Ohio State hung with Clemson for the first quarter, both scoring 14 points, but pulled away in the second quarter, winning the second quarter 21-0. Clemson failed to come back in the second half, and Ohio State hung on to win by 3 touchdowns. The final score of the Shocker is 49-28. In the first drive of the game, Trevor Lawrence led Clemson down the field. The Tigers scored a touchdown before 3 minutes were off the board. After 2 points, one by each team, Ohio State and Trey Sermon led Ohio State to a 3-play touchdown drive. Clemson scored a touchdown on the next drive, and Ohio State answered right back. Ohio State scored another touchdown before Ohio State got the ball back again. On that drive, with about 6 minutes left in the first half, Justin Fields was hit by James Skolowski. James Skolowski was ejected from the game, and Justin Fields looked like he got injured or potentially a broken rib, though we don't know yet. Clemson and Ohio State traded touchdowns in the second half, but Ohio State did win. Justin Fields had one of, if not the best, Sugar Bowl performances of all time with 385 passing yards, 42 rushing yards, and 6 passing touchdowns. Running back Trey Sermon rushed for 193 yards and a rushing touchdown. Receiver Chris Olave caught 6 passes with 132 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Tight end Jeremy Ruckert also caught 2 touchdowns for the Buckeyes. Seniors Shaun Wade and Justin Hillard both had massive games on the defensive side with the ball, both with 8 tackles, and Hillard had a fumble recovery. For the Clemson Tigers, Trevor Lawrence potentially had his last game and had a very quiet 400 yards with 2 touchdowns and a last-second interception. Travis Etienne had a very quiet game with 32 rushing yards and a goal line touchdown, though Etienne did have 64 receiving yards. Tigers receiver Cornell Powell did have 8 receptions for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns for a monster game. Though Brian Brees and Balon Spector were able to sack Fields, they couldn't stop the Buckeyes' offense. That's my recap of the CFP semis. I'll try to do a tiny preview of Bama against Ohio State, even though I think there will be a video on that in about a week or so, probably a day or 2 before the national championship game. I do think Alabama will beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, but that game just proved that the Buckeyes are a legit team. My early prediction is Alabama 38 to Ohio State 24. That's my recap of the semis and my early prediction for the national championship game. If you want to check out my latest video where I talk about Nikola Jokic, how he's becoming the best passer in the NBA and is in the MVP conversation, that link will be in the description, and I think will hopefully, if I can get it, be in the pinned comment. Thanks for watching, be healthy, stay safe, and peace.